property management, first investor from Wisconsin that we're having on the show. So it's kind of a big show.
But she's a fourth generation investor.
That is true. We didn't really get into like the fourth generation, but she does mention the lineage of her family and how that all progressed into her career. But yeah, 4 generations in, all property investors.
Yeah.
She started a property management company, which she talks about how it helps her grow her portfolio. Because obviously when you have staff that can help you out, help you grow it, delegating, that should be the theme of the show, delegating. It helps grow what you can do. And obviously she talks about that. We talk about when you get into private money lending. She talks pretty extensively about that because a lot of her portfolio is leveraged with private lending. So very insightful. Hopefully you guys take some nuggets out of it. We're going to have her back in a little bit because towards the end of the show, we talk about turning into conventional lending from private lending. So stay tuned for part 2 of this one, but let's get into part 1. Hopefully you guys enjoy.
So I'm actually a 4th generation real estate investor. My parents, my grandparents, and actually a set of great-grandparents were all real estate investors. So I very much grew up in the industry. When I was a kid, I actually traded chores at home for working on rental properties on the weekend and the summer, and I won't complain because I'd have to do my laundry till I moved out of the house.
That's awesome. That's some great, like, real-world experience.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I learned so much just from hands-on experience with both my parents, a little bit with my grandparents, but definitely my parents, because at the age of 9, like I was going to networking events with them for real estate. I was doing showings with them. Well, not doing them, but I was sitting coloring a book or whatever you have it in the background.
Yep.
And so I absorbed so much of this early on. And my dad says I learned how to paint a room before I even knew how to write my name.
That's awesome.
I love it. My husband didn't know how to paint a room until like 2 years ago. So
you've got a little bit of a jump start on her husband.
Yeah.
That's cool because I take my son sometimes when I go to showings or when we're on the job site doing a flip. Like I'll take my son with. He's got his tool belt and his toolbox with a mini hammer. Give him some boards and some nails to just go kind of work on whatever he's working on.
I need to do that with mine.
Yeah, he built our house. He actually did set floors. So he knows how to do flooring. He doesn't know how to tie his shoes, but he knows how to do flooring.
See, and that's the amazing things when you grow up in this. Like, there's really simple things kids know that you don't, but you could do much more complicated things.
Yeah. So that's cool that it kind of sat with you all these years, and now you're taking the knowledge that was kind of embedded in you, whether you wanted that or not, I guess, but to carry on the family business.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
And it still is a family business because I invest with my brother. He's actually my partner as well, so we're doing this together.
Awesome. And where are you guys out of?
So our rental properties are actually in Rock County, Wisconsin.
Oh, really? Rock County.
Yes.
Why? I'm from Wisconsin, and I don't know where that is.
I don't know where that is. I'm not from Wisconsin.
So Rock County covers like Beloit, Janesville. It's just south of Madison.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I actually worked down in Janesville for a little bit. I didn't know I was in Rock County.
Oh.
Learned something new. Well, that's awesome that you're, at least within Wisconsin, you're the first investor that we've had
Wisconsin
that works in Wisconsin. So that's a first.
Yay.
This is where we need a soundboard. We need like fireworks or some cheering. So did you kind of align with your family, or did you kind of go off on your own, start your own company? Obviously you don't eliminate your family. I'm sure you still talk with them and bounce ideas off of, but are you fully independent, or they kind of come on board with what you're doing?
Well, when I was first in college and stuff, I actually studied law, and I tried to like forge my own path, but then I quickly realized that I hated that. So I came back to real estate, and after spending like 2 years away working as a legal assistant, I came back to real estate, and I just found my home here. And right now, honestly, like my dad is one of my biggest counselors in general, just not only with our path and rentals, but also I'm heavily involved in like state real estate organizations with the Wisconsin Apartment Association, and he's a huge sounding board for me, and making sure that I am doing those roles to the best of my ability and learning from his experience in all these positions.
That's cool. It sounds like you have like a built-in mentor with your dad.
I I do. I am so very lucky in that aspect. I'm so very lucky. And I'll be honest, like my dad and I always didn't have the greatest relationship. As a teenager, I think I butted heads with him a lot. But now that I'm in my 30s, I definitely view him a lot differently.
Yeah.
It's
No,
funny
that's
how
cool.
happens.
Right. I keep telling my son, like, he's got two brothers with him, and like, you guys fight now, and I know you do, but one day you guys will be best friends. Obviously a different relationship between daughter and father and brothers, but when you grow up, you just see people in a different light and something clicks.
I just tell my
Yes.
8-year-old not to hate me when he's a teenager, hoping that'll work.
It'll work. So when you look for a property, is there like an asset class that you guys try to sit in, or is every property an opportunity and you try to take it where it can go? How do you kind of delineate?
Really, Chris and I and my brother, we've always sort of focused on more of, I'd say, maybe a high C on the low end, but usually in the B- and B areas usually.
Okay. And for the listeners, A class is like your luxury, either home or apartment, and then obviously B, C, D, it goes down from there. Is it a?
I just learned something new.
For the asset class that you're looking at, is it multifamily, like 100 unit plus? Is it duplexes?
We do. So I prefer personally quads. My brother tells me not to be so picky. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. So we have a mixture of quads and duplexes because he won't let me look a gift horse in the mouth and say no. So he's very much my sounding board. It keeps me in line. So we've always done duplexes and quads. I'm not sure we have much of a affinity for doing large complexes. I've always focused predominantly my knowledge base in the smaller multifamily, and we do tend to stay away from single families as well.
Yeah. And I just talked a couple shows ago because I have a single family, and I just took those tenants out to look for a home, and I heard it before, but it hit me. When I lose that tenant, I lose 100% of my occupancy.
Yeah.
Whereas a quad, you lose one tenant, you're only down 25%. So it hits a little bit harder. So I definitely see why you stay away from the single family rental.
Yeah, that's something I learned from my dad because he tried it early on, and he learned that was not the way to do it because then you have nobody paying for your mortgage, nobody paying for the roof.
Right. And that's the difficult part now. And the tenants have been great, and I don't want to lose them, but I'm happy that they're looking, and we've got other plans for that lot. So it won't be a single family for very long for that reason.
Right.
And the one other thing is when you stay within that quad and lower, you're still in that residential umbrella. Is that something you guys are motivated to stay under so you don't have to follow like the commercial law side of it?
Not necessarily. I would say honestly the biggest motivator for us is just the idea that the smaller multifamilies, they tend to be more cash producing friendly than you get into larger complexes. Larger complexes, you deal with a lot more turnovers usually, and with that comes turnover costs, things like that. So we've really tried to stick with basically what we know produces a good amount of cash.
Yeah, and rightfully so. That's what you're after with rentals. So when you are looking for a property, is there a system you guys have, or have you kind of taken over a system that your parents or grandparents have used to find properties, or how do you find your deals that you invest in?
Well, the only thing that I could really say that we use the same as my grandparents or parents would be just word of mouth. As my dad likes to point out, technology is 20 times different than even when he was actively investing. So
yeah. Yep.
For us, really, beyond this word of mouth, it comes down to the process of basically starting from scratch, where we sat down just actually in October, I think it was, and we set our guidelines, our basically decision funnel for properties. And we went through location, we went through type of property, age of property, and what our payment scale was going to be, what purchase price we wanted. And then we moved on to just getting familiar with the different counties that we were okay with investing in, getting an idea of where the prices are at right now, getting an idea of where we want to actually be calendar-wise. So we set the goal for the first property purchase to be in June or July of this year. So we're just going through, we're watching what's coming on the market. We're watching what's coming across Facebook groups, word of mouth, and just being sure that we're ready to jump when someone says they have something that meets within our funnel.
Yeah. And when you look at your area, are you looking for more of a metro, close to like the downtown area? Are you looking for those second tier communities? What kind of goes into that delineation for you guys?
Well, as far as thinking about that, we've both made the decision that we want to stay out of municipalities or counties even, that tend to have a high level of red tape associated with rental properties.
Yep.
So for that reason, we're steering clear of here in Wisconsin, Milwaukee County, Dane County, because those are two counties that have a high level of regulatory regulations against the rental industry.
I hear you there, because I stay far clear of those.
Yes. I try and keep it as simple as possible. So we're looking, honestly, for some of the smaller metro areas. So we're looking at places, I mean, people aren't familiar with Wisconsin, maybe as your listeners, but we're looking at smaller cities. We're looking at like Waukesha, Jefferson, Janesville, Beloit. Those are sort of your smaller cities that don't necessarily have too much red tape.
Yeah. I send mailers out to Waukesha and Brookfield all the time, pretty much Waukesha County. And any property that I see. So if you've gotten a mailer from me, I apologize.
Not yet, but I'll look for it.
All right. No, and I like the Waukesha area. It's funny that you bring that up. I feel like it's such a middle ground between the Milwaukee County and Dane County, where people will live there when they still experience those counties, but they don't really want to live in those counties.
Right.
A nice, easy drive for them. And I mean, you coming up from Janesville area, I mean, it's not that hard of a drive for you guys.
Right.
And with that, with your properties stretching over multiple counties, that's one thing that I'll be honest, I haven't gotten comfortable with, is getting too far away from the county that I live in, because a lot of the management stuff I do myself. And I'm going to ask you about your management too, but with your property stretching so far, how do you manage when a maintenance ticket comes in, or a tenant has an issue at 2 a.m? How do you guys kind of navigate through that one? Or what's your system set up to alleviate those pressures?
Sure. So I guess this is where having a property management company that I own comes in handy, because when I say jump, they all jump.
Yeah.
So I do have specifically boots on the ground that we use for Rock County. But then I do have my management company as sort of a backup. Even though they're based in Kenosha County, if I need them, I can call on them. So if I have a bigger project or my other person isn't available and it is a 2 a.m. thing, then I can call them. But I'm married to a repairman, so I have that luxury as well.
That's awesome. That works out very well. He fits right into the family.
Yeah, because sometimes I just get the call and I'm like, okay, we're going, Jake, because I don't know if I trust anyone else to handle the old plumbing or whatever it is. We're going.
Yeah. Got to bring them into the family business then.
Right.
That's so handy. So do you work more on the acquisition side or the property management side? Or is it kind of all weaved in where you can't really delineate between time spent and all that?
I got to honestly say, I can't really delineate because I do actively do both sides of it. My brother has made a W-2 job career, and where I've been immersed in this continually since I was a kid. So all of this is all fresh in my mind. So he's really sort of been my sounding board and my check as far as how I'm approaching these things, but I'm the person that's finding the acquisitions, running them past him. We're talking about them. He brings the creativity to it. So he's great for imagining rehabs. He's great for keeping my sometimes frugal spending a little bit less frugal.
You need
we
somebody.
developed a good partnership.
You need somebody to push you to spend.
That's where I would come in too, for sure.
Yeah, because we just had this conversation last summer, and I still remember the look on his face. I'm like, I really wish we could redo the kitchen floor here. It's just the funds aren't here. And we literally just got done looking over the financials, and he gives me this look like, are you serious? We have plenty of money. Do the darn kitchen floor.
Gives you that nice push. It sounds friendly push.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
That is very cool, and that's a unique situation to have, like, your brother in there with you as a partnership, or any family member in that regard, to be there with you, because I'm sure there's like an aspect of trust in there that I mean, can't be beat by bringing somebody else in.
There is, but then at the same time, just like my dad recently re-explained to us as we talked about growing the portfolio, when you invest with family, whether it be your brother or even your spouse, if there's any fractures in your personal relationship, it's going to come through on the professional side. So build the personal side, build that foundation, and then that's going to make the professional foundation all the more stronger. And this is why suddenly my brother and I started talking about Netflix TV shows again and things like that, because we're building that personal foundation.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. That's a great insight from your dad. To build that personal side first. It's still like resonating with me. I'm like, am I doing that good enough?
Everybody needs to build their personal side first.
I know. But like the staff that we have and the investor, like, are we building that more? Good enough? You know?
Right.
It's resonating.
You should see the look.
You
on
like
his
struck a
face
chord
right
with
now.
that one. I haven't met your dad, but your dad just struck a chord with me.
Yeah.
I'll be sure and tell him next time.
Yeah, that was.
Marcus
cool.
is gonna go home and like have a good hard like sit down think on this. Tonight.
I'm gonna call everybody tonight. Be like, hey, how are you doing?
Do you still like me? Are we still friends?
No, I'll give them Friday off. Monday morning, 8 a.m. They'll like me more that way. I want to dive more into like you analyzing properties or looking at an asset that you're going to pick up. Is it do you stress on cash flow first? Do you stress on, I don't know if you do many flips, or is it all going to be like turnkey? And how does that factor into what you look at? If you look on the MLS, you see a duplex, needs repair, but it's in the area you want. Is that something you jump after, or do you go for more turnkey? We know we're going to get cash flow of X amount of dollars per month.
So I definitely look at cash flow, mainly because of the perspective that, and this is probably maybe TMI, but this is sort of a great, I guess, sounding effect to this. Last year, the reason my brother and I started to get serious about expanding was because his W-2 job became with a certain level of uncertainty suddenly. And as entrepreneurs, we all know that those kind of jobs are always uncertain, but last year it hit a little harder.
Yeah.
So as we came to the table to expand this year, I knew that our focus had to be on cash flow in the event that his W-2 job no longer existed. So, of course, I'm looking at cash flow almost number one, and if I can get a cash flowing unit, but it requires a little bit of work, that's fine for me because I have the crew I can call upon. I have my own maintenance crew. I have my husband. I have other people. So really, I do focus on the net cash flow right now first for personal reasons.
Yeah. And do you have your system set up I'm guessing it's in your property management company, that you can kind of plug in your property, what you think the ARV is going to be, what you think the mortgage will be, and it'll calculate a number and you can just go off of that? Or do you guys still manually input and run those numbers?
So we do a little, we actually do manual input. So depending on my mood, I either use calculators on Bigger Pockets, or I have a set of Excel spreadsheets that I got from a fellow investor a couple years ago that cover a wide range of things like internal rate of return, cash on cash return, all these things. So depending on my mood, I switch between the two.
Bonus points for referencing Bigger Pockets.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
I was just listening to Bigger Pockets as I'm waiting for this train to pass to get to this podcast. They're on my radio more than Pandora is.
Anything.
Yeah, I love Bigger Pockets. I still use their cash flow calculator, their spreadsheets.
I was going to say, and if you have any other books you'd like to recommend for Marcus, he's always looking for new and interesting books.
Most of my books have come off of Bigger Pockets. Like every one of their guests brings up a new book, and I'm like, okay, I'll write that down. So
I guess, the most, like, if we're talking real estate, the real estate book that I'm tending to recommend a lot more now, it's a very long title, but it's by a gentleman named Frank Gianelli. I'm going to get this wrong, but it's what every real estate investor needs to know about cash flow. It's a very math-heavy book, but it's absolutely worth it. I suck at math. I don't really like it, but I was able to get through the book. So even if you're math shy or you're like, I couldn't pass Algebra 1, it's okay. You'll get through this book, but it's really, really informative, and it really kind of hits you in the face as far as, wow, there's a lot more to numbers than even you learn on Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
He's writing it down right now.
I'm actually going on to Amazon to put it in my shopping cart. Which is a great book. I know I've heard it on there. It's one of the books that I haven't read yet or purchased, but it is in my shopping cart, and I will do that.
It's definitely not an audiobook one, by the way, because my brother tried that. He's like, I cannot listen to this in the car because it's that dense.
Oh, boy.
It's one that you need a pen and paper to write down.
Yeah, exactly.
What were, just for the audience, what was the title of the book again? And then what were your biggest takeaways from that book that kind of like made you go to the next gear or the next level in your business?
Sure. So I believe the title is What Every Real Estate Investor Needs to Know About Cash Flow.
Okay.
If you Google that, you're going to it's going to show up as a result. It's just such a long title. I have a hard time remembering it.
And we'll get the name right, and it'll be in the show notes.
Yeah.
So,
oh, perfect.
Yeah, no problem with that.
The biggest thing that I took away from that really sticks in my mind is that as far as the best time to exit a property, it's not always necessarily at the end of 27 and a half years when you can no longer write off the depreciation. When you run numbers in the complex way that he does, you might learn the best time to sell it is 3 years later, 4 years later. And it's all based on this idea of future value of money and present value of money, which I can't even begin to get into in this podcast, but that was the biggest thing I took away from it.
Oh, I did not know that. So that's my little teaser of why I need to get this book.
Okay.
To read why.
I'll mark that down.
Yep, writing it down. Yeah, we'll get the title right. We'll put in the show notes for that one. Is there, and I'm always curious because to me, investing and being an entrepreneur, everybody has that one pivotal moment that kind of tips the scale to where they're like, all right, I'm done doing either the 9 to 5 or I'm done doing this job. It's either, from what I've seen, a podcast or a book or a person they've talked to or a mentor that has kind of tipped the scale. Was there a book that you read or something you listened to, or was it family influence that was just like, yeah, that's the direction I need to go, or this changed my mindset and I see it now and this is what I need to do?
It was actually none of the above. If I'm completely honest, and this is going down a rather personal path, but my sort of aha moment was back in 2013. I was working at the law firm during my little brief stint outside of real estate, and I was going through some major life changes. My aunt, who I was severely close to, was more like a sister to me, passed away of cancer, and I was still in the throes of grief for that. And I remember going on lunch at the law firm and just going to a parking lot and calling my parents in absolute tears because I was just absolutely miserable, not only with what was going on personally, but just being in that environment and like not being able to drop everything at that moment to go help my dad who was still grieving, or even like my brother was fresh having kids. It's like not being able to help babysit when they needed it or anything like that. And I just told my dad, I'm like, I can't do this. This is not what I want for my life. I want to be able to help the people that I love. And that was when he said, we need to have a conversation about becoming a true entrepreneur then, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to get personal fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
Work-life balance is incredibly important, and I think that being in this field has allowed that for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's
yeah,
and I'll let you go. Sorry.
It's something that I look back on that, and it was like the absolute lowest point of my life recently. But it was that pivotal moment that I really needed to fully embrace what I really feel now is my destiny. Yeah.
And it wasn't too personal, so don't worry. We had an episode last week where this investor, he's actually out of Toronto, I believe. He kind of went into his background, and he came from a background where he was in medical sales and making a lot of money, but his work-life balance was just way out of whack. And he talks about where he hit rock bottom in literally just the mindset shift and things just took off in the right direction. He's more personally fulfilled. He's helping the people that he wanted to help. And I feel like every entrepreneur can pinpoint exactly when that mind shift happened in their life. It's all different. It's all personal, obvious, but they always have that one point that was just like, this is it.
I remember when mine was.
When was yours?
I was working for a commercial cleaning company as an executive assistant in Waukesha, and my boss was the most god-awful boss that you could ever have. Like, he wouldn't pay employees if they did something wrong. He'd withhold their paychecks, and I was like, who does that? That's awful. And I was like, I quit. I can't do it anymore. I quit. And then I started my first business, and then I have since sold that, and now I'm on to my second business. So that's life.
It's so important not to be that kind of boss. I mean, I strive every day to not be that kind of boss with the 7 employees I have. I feel myself always checking myself, like, was I a good boss today?
Aw, that's so sweet. That's why I'm just not a boss to anybody now. That's why I just boss me and my husband around. That's it.
I'm sure you appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
Every day.
Sure.
Is there, as you continue to grow, because I don't know what your portfolio size is at this point, but with what you have, do you have a goal in mind? Because I know that you and your brother talked about expanding this year. Do you guys have a set goal of how many properties you want, total cash flow? How are you guys kind of delineating what success is for this year with your growth?
So right now we have 12 units in total mixed across the duplexes and quads. And our goal for this year, I would say our pie in the sky goal is like between 8 to 10 units, but I say the realistic goal is like 6 to 8.
Okay. And that's within the counties that you had talked about earlier?
Yeah, so we're looking at Rock County, Jefferson County, possibly Kenosha and Walworth County. You know, Waukesha County is one of those counties we both would love to get into more, but it's also one of the more expensive counties to get into right now. So it's sort of like the catch-22.
Yep, that is definitely true. And I wish I could get into Jefferson. I've looked into, but it's still a little bit farther away from my crew and where they're coming from. So Kenosha is a good one, and it's, if you're not familiar with Wisconsin, it's growing, and it's a nice little corridor between Chicago and Milwaukee.
Maybe we should put like a map of Wisconsin in our show notes.
That would help.
Here.
That would probably help. Yes.
We will do that.
Take a look at what we're talking about.
We'll do that
with arrows and stuff.
Exactly. Natasha's got that one. She'll make things look pretty.
Yeah.
Perfect.
With the expansion, are you guys, if this is too personal, I completely understand, but obviously with investing comes funds. Are you guys self-funded at this point? Did you bring in a hard money lender? Do you guys go conventional lending?
So everything we've acquired thus far has been one form of creative financing or another. And as we move forward, I'm actually in the process right now of networking with new private money lenders because the ones we've used previously are exhausted or unfortunately no longer with us in this world. So we've had to kind of move on and re-network. And so I'm in the process right now of connecting with private money lenders and building, guess what, that personal relationship first, and then building on that professional one.
That's awesome. Have you enjoyed working with private lending?
I have actually, because for me personally, it was almost the only avenue that we have, because I guess this is sort of like the triumphant story, but in 2009, I was diagnosed with cancer. We didn't have insurance at the time. I went through 9 months of chemo. I had 2 years of extended therapy to make sure my cancer never came back. And because of that, of course, came huge hospital bills. So we ended up filing for bankruptcy, which really makes it very hard to get a residential home loan, let alone anything that you're not going to be living in. So our only avenue when we started out in 2012 with my brother was actually going through private money, seller financing, and those sort of relationships.
That's good that you've had like a positive experience, because you hear people they tried going private lending and just the horror stories that came with it. But it's proof that it can be done, which is awesome to hear, and hopefully our audience sees that it can be done once you build that relationship with the person. One thing you don't want to do is go in cold. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that, going into a hard money lender when there is no personal relationship and it's more of a need basis. But I feel like that could cause some hiccups.
It can, because when it's a need-based relationship, I go back to something like Brandon Turner said early on, like really early on. He says that when you walk into a bank or a hard money lender, they're the ones with all the control. So if you're in the position that you need something from them, they have all the control.
Yep.
So when you're building private money relationships and you're building on personal relationships first, they want to do it to help you out more than they want to do it because you're backed into a corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is true. And that's one side of investing that I haven't been into. So I've got a lot of questions on it. And for our audience, I mean, where did you find or how did you nurture that relationship with your first private lender? Obviously, you don't give any names or anything like that, but did you go on the internet? Because obviously technology is crazy. You can go on and type in Google hard money lender and you'll get 100 hits for somebody that wants to lend money.
Sure.
But it's hard to build that personal relationship through the internet. So what kind of avenues did you take to search out your first private lender or private lenders that you work with now as you're trying to reconnect?
When we first started out, I'll be honest, I guess this is where the first time we sort of did cash in our chips on existing relationships through our parents. We actually were able to connect with people of their age that were looking to get out of the business. And they also had money that they had from selling their personal home and sort of starting to live that retirement life that they needed to put places. So we cashed in on that relationship and really sort of not took advantage of it in the negative sense, but we certainly took advantage of it and sort of jumped being able to have that opportunity. Now, as we're rebuilding, we've exhausted what we've had. We're going to the internet. Honestly, we're going to the internet, maybe Google searching, but predominantly it's just being active, even if it's passively, in Facebook groups and just watching threads where somebody mentions private money lending or introduces themselves as a potential private money lender and queuing in on that, getting contact information and making that first contact with the email, the phone call, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that hopefully our listeners can take away. You can go on Facebook and put in private money lenders, and there's so many groups of people that if you're in real estate or want to get into real estate, you can go in and find somebody on Facebook. Bigger Pockets has the forums. You can go in and find hard money lenders.
Facebook is almost like the new Google.
It's turning into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
But I mean, there's so many people out there. I mean, I started my real estate career with negative money. So, if you listen to past shows, I talk about like how I started, and it was more of a personal side where I had split and I had been left with a lot of debt. So I literally started real estate with negative money, using other people's money, not in like the bad term like you're saying, but using it effectively and starting to build on it is a great way to get yourself to where you want to be, until you can flip it into more of a conventional loan, which I'm sure you guys have done once or twice.
No, actually. So we don't have any conventional loans that we have acquired ourselves right now. So we are very fortunate in that aspect. But I believe sort of the sun is setting on that, and I believe we will probably be going down that road with our new avenue where private money lending will cover for maybe 3 years at most, but then we'll cash out that loan into a conventional.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother animal once you get there, is the refinance. Because I'm in that same boat. We've got everything out. I'm still in hard money, and I'm now in that threshold where I'm looking to get that either a portfolio loan or just a conventional loan per property, just to get out and pull that cash out. So we'll learn that world together, like the first world experience together. And so you're saying the 3 to 4 year mark. So are you close to that threshold where it's coming up this year, or is that something next year where you guys are going to kind of climb that hill?
Well, no, we probably won't climb that hill because right now everything we have structured, we only have one more private money loan left, and that one is going to be paid off in about 2 years completely. So anything we purchase new with private money, given that we're going to more or less professional private money lenders.
Mm-hmm.
We're going into this knowing that, okay, this isn't going to be a 10-year or 15-year or anything like that we may or may not be used to. We're going to need to be able to cash out of this for this person within like 3 years, realistically.
Yeah. And that's something that you plan in with, I know you love math. That's something that you plan in when you go into the deal, saying, like, we can buy this, we're going to use this hard money lender in 3 years, we're going to try to cash out. That's stuff that you all calculate in with your cash flow or whatever formula that you guys use?
Oh, absolutely. Because if we're going to be, not that I seek this out, but if we end up in a private money loan where maybe we're only paying interest or something, this has all got to be pre-planned in the calculations. Where are we going to get this equity from? How is this going to affect the cash flow? So absolutely.
Yeah, that's, I remember when I started going in I remember this distinctly. I was on a run. Because for some reason with me, running clears my head and I can think way better. And it's not like a competitive, like I'm going to train for a marathon. I just go out and I run, whatever pace it is. And I remember like, okay, I've got no money. I know that I wanted to get into real estate. What can I do? And I actually stopped on my run and on my phone, I Googled hard money lender and I called somebody. And I don't know what company it was, but it was one of those mega hard money lenders. It was like, at that point, like 13 or 14% in 5 points. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but when I get back to my run, I'm going to look this up. And this was how elementary I was. I had no idea what a point was. I had no idea. Well, I mean, I kind of had an idea that 14% is high.
Right.
But I got back and I was like, whoa, this world is complicated. And it's not something that I just learned myself. I went out and I talked to lenders and I was like, why is hard money this way? And just asking a bunch of questions. And I probably look like an idiot. More so than I do every other day. I did it before you said it.
You said it.
So it doesn't count.
Nope.
I saw you open your eyes like I got him. So then I just had to say it.
I was going to try and be nice though too. Like I was on the fence. I was like, should I be nice or should I be mean? I don't know.
I just had to call it out. But when you ask questions to those lenders, so if someone out there is listening and you're opening your world to private lending because you're talking about it, I mean, you can call them and ask questions. Some will be receptive, some won't. But find the person that's receptive to find more information about it because you're not going to learn about it until you get into it. I'm sure there were some nuances that you found out through the whole course of using them that popped up, and you're like, I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah, I think actually, to be honest, I was very blessed because my father heavily used private money, so I had a little bit of an idea of, well, definitely of what not to do. And then I certainly got some idea of the best approach too as well. But definitely the biggest thing that I learned going into this, and I did hear this from my father, and I guess I took it a little bit for granted, and this is when I should really start listening to him all the time. But he had told me when you approach people that aren't involved in real estate to be private money lenders, so if you are going to your family or friends and they're not involved, you need to spend time educating them on real estate investing and how it's not the horror stories that they hear, because the only thing the general public hears is the horror stories about losing money or doing toilets at 2 a.m. So part of approaching these people is educating them on the true opportunities in real estate and making sure they also understand that this isn't like depositing your money even in stocks where you could sell your stock shares and get it back in 6 months. This is a commitment for X amount of time.
Yep.
I think you need to talk to my father because my father is like so against investing in real estate, like so against it.
I have a couple of family members that are hard set against it, and that's part of also why we've gone rather quickly to outside sources, and that's sort of the reality of it, is that sometimes based on people's personal experiences or otherwise, you can't change their minds, and that's when you might be forced to get a little bit more creative with your private money lending. Yeah.
And that the topic that you bring about being in the field or being in real estate is so big, because I don't know if people have come to you and approached you with ideas and about something outside of real estate. Invest in this, and I always talk to them like, that sounds like a really great idea. It's not for me. Like, I'm committed to real estate. That is what I'm doing. That's where I'm investing.
Right. Not
saying your idea is bad. I don't get it.
I love being in the world of real estate without actually having to do the sales. But my dad does not understand my like love for it. It's just awesome. I love learning from everybody. Like on these podcasts each week, I feel like I learn so much, even though I don't put it to use. But I'm learning.
You were an agent for a little bit.
I still am an agent.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So it's nothing against what people are investing in, or what if you or I go to a private money lender and they don't understand real estate. It's not that our idea is bad, just they don't understand what we're trying to do and where they can get to. I'm trying to think of the last person. I think somebody was talking to me about starting up like a restaurant. And I was like, it sounds super cool and I like the concept of it, but I don't get it. And it scares me. And because it scares me, just like Shark Tank, I'm out.
Exactly.
I hope the best for you, but I'm out.
Yes. And, I've been approached by a lot of different things, somebody recently approached me to get involved in a campground. I'm like, I have no clue. And I go back to something Warren Buffett says, that even when you're investing in stocks, don't invest in what you don't understand.
Right.
So if you don't understand it, don't put your money there. So that's basically the philosophy I follow.
Yeah. And I mean, the flip side of that coin is if the person on the other side of the table that you're trying to understand isn't willing and doesn't want to, it's probably not going to be a great relationship. Mm-hmm. Probably not the person that you want to be a partner with you on that. So, I mean, when you're trying to educate these people and they're just not willing to learn and understand, just let it be how they're presenting themselves, let their colors show, and just move on. There's always more people out there. And I feel like, I don't know if you've talked to other people, they get their first no and they're like, this isn't for me. I can't do it. And you just like got to keep pounding the thought, like there's more people out there that see it the way you see it. You just got to go find them.
Yes, that's exactly. You've just got to basically tell everyone what you're doing, and eventually opportunities will find you.
Yeah. There was some quote that just came up on our Instagram page, someone that we follow, I can't remember who it was, but it said, if you listen to, and this is not in your case because your family gets it, but it said, if you take advice from majority of your family, friends, and coworkers, you're going to fail. And they're basically saying, like the whole caption underneath was saying that they aren't in the world. They're not seeing, they're not motivated like you are. So if you talk to them like, I'm going to take all of my savings and invest in a house, a rental, and they're like, that's the dumbest idea ever. To them, it is probably the dumbest idea ever because they're using their savings to travel. Right. But if my joy is not in traveling or buying, like, I don't know why I thought of like old decorative china glasses. I don't know. That's how my mind works. I'm an idiot. I'm not going to get it. And I know I'm going to say it before you say it again. It's just they're not in that world and they're not motivated. And I mean, they weren't saying it in a negative way, like don't listen to them at all, period. But if you're talking to them about being an entrepreneur and starting your investments and leveraging yourself and extending yourself and they're not getting it, doesn't mean your idea is wrong. You just have to go find people that are going to support the world that you want to create, and things will happen. Like with you, you've got your family. They were a huge kind of stepping stone and support group for you to get to where you and your brother are now. Mm-hmm. So that kind of, it just stuck out when you said that.
It's really sort of along the lines of something a dear colleague of mine said at a convention almost 2 years ago now because of the pandemic, but we were sitting at a table chatting and someone came up and they're like, oh, I want to get into real estate, but everyone tells me not to do it. And this colleague of mine turned to this curious investor and said, do you go to your car mechanic and ask him what kind of hairstyle you should get?
That's a good one.
No.
Yeah.
So only go to people that are doing what you think you want to do to get advice.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah, and keep trying to find them. You're gonna get no's. Have you ever read the book Go for No?
No, I've actually never even heard of it.
Oh yeah, it's a sales book. I must have read that like 10 years ago. But it's a narrative of this sales guy. He goes through and he plans out his week and he's like, okay, I just need to make 10 more sales or 5 more sales at the end of the week to meet my quota. So he has a really good Monday. He gets 2 sales. Tuesday gets another one. He's like, it's 10 o'clock on a Tuesday. I already have half of my sales done. I'm taking the day off. And Wednesday, he doesn't wake up. And then Thursday, someone calls and cancels their order. So now he's down to 2. And now he's on Friday and he's like, I need 3 orders, otherwise I'm not getting my quota. And the whole moral of the story, without letting too much out, is to go for the no's or go for the contact points. Talk to as many people as you can and set your goal for how many no's can you get. Because if you get X amount of no's, you're bound to get some yeses. But if you set your benchmark to get your yeses, you're going to get complacent and not push.
I was going to say, when I started my business, my second business, my husband was like, you're going to get a lot of no's, Natasha. But that's okay because all you have to do is get one yes.
Yeah. I mean, I went through 3 investors saying no. And I felt like I was doing the best work I've ever done, creating my business plan, giving them all the details of what I want to see and what I want this to turn out to in 10, 20 years, and to flat out say no. And I was like, you won't even let me explain? And they're like, no, I'm out. And it was like crushing.
Yeah.
But then you get the one yes, and you're like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
You just got to find that one, and I don't know, it takes off.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, and it's the same point. You also got to understand the success isn't linear. You know, everyone thinks success is overnight, suddenly it happened. No, I mean, success, whether it be as a real estate agent or as an investor, it's not linear. It didn't just happen overnight. We've been pounding the pavement. We've been doing the same things for years. And then the momentum just clicks and the opportunities start coming. People start to get to know you. They hear about you. Mm-hmm. And that's when it all comes together.
Yeah. Yeah. We're rounding out. I get capped at an hour, so I know we're like getting near that.
We are.
What I wanted to ask you, when you are approached by somebody who wants to get into real estate investing, or has the idea and just kind of throwing it out casually, what would be the first bit of advice that you'd give somebody, either to get them motivated or, hey, I would start here, this is probably a good way to look? What would you give them in terms of advice to kind of get them started or get the ball rolling?
In terms of advice, I always tell people that the first 2 things you want to start doing is educating yourself and networking. Start reading books, start listening to podcasts. Now's the time to do that before you've actually made any financial decisions. You want to get all your learning done, or as much as you can, before you've put money on the table or even other people's money on the table. So absorb as much information as you can. And at the same time, this is the time to network. It's crucial. Build these relationships with general contractors, with real estate agents, with whoever, so that when you need their services, they'll jump rather than just cold calling once you need somebody and then trying to get them to react to you.
Yeah. And the nice thing about that is everything you said was free.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, some networking events may cost a little bit of money, but for the most part,
they're free.
Yeah, you're not like
making relationships is free.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
You're not breaking the bank to go meet somebody or to go talk to somebody. I mean, my first dip my toe in real estate was to go look at a duplex. I had no idea, no background. I was just like, duplexes are cool. Let's go look at one. And it ended up, started talking to the broker, and things just took off. So it was something free. It took an hour out of my day in my afternoon when I was miserable at my sales job. And it turned out to be all right.
There you go.
So that was great advice, and hopefully the listeners take that, run with it. And if our listeners are intrigued to get in contact with you, what is the best way, or a few ways to get in contact with you? We'll leave all the information in the show notes, but.
Sure. So there's a couple ways to get a hold of me. So over on Instagram, I am Landlord Chick. So that's pretty easy to remember. I am on Bigger Pockets as Corina Eufinger, EUFINGER. And then you can just, if you want to try and find me through my company, it's briopropertieswi.com. That's my property management company.
Awesome. And we'll make sure all those in the show notes so people can reach out to you directly if they have any questions or want to ask or bounce ideas off of you.
Great.
So we'll add that in there with the map of Wisconsin.
Yes.
Because I don't think we've done that yet for our listeners. We've got listeners in, what's the farthest one?
France and Ireland. Yeah.
And I'm guessing they don't know Wisconsin.
Oh, probably not.
Probably not.
We need to educate them on that one.
But we had a couple people listen to our last podcast from Chicago today. So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's closer. They know Wisconsin.
Ish.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But no, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. I want to have you back on because I want to talk to you about when you start flipping over from hard money into conventional lending. Whenever that happens, and kind of talk about the transition with that, because I know that a lot of our listeners who are investors may not have hit that part, or if they started investing recently, they're not going to hit that part for a little bit. And I feel like that would be a good little nugget of information to pass along if you're willing to come on again.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course.
All right. And we're going to end the show, and I'm following you on Instagram
Right now.
So
Awesome.
you'll have another following come in.
Great. I appreciate it. And I'll be sure and follow you back.
Perfect.
Yay.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
It's supposed to be warm.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, this is a heat wave.
I know. I was walking outside and like not my winter parka for a little bit today, and then I got cold again.
I know. Our guys are so
Right.
excited that they're back outside.
Yeah.
We had to pull them off the job site because we were doing siding and roofing. And obviously the past 2 weeks have been like -10.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't have you guys on a roof at -10 degrees. So I had to pull them all inside, and they were getting like stir crazy.
Yeah.
So they're excited.
Oh,
to be
yeah.
outside. And hopefully the snow, or most of the snow, will melt over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We've got way too much. That needs to go away.
Right.
Yeah.
You guys got hit harder than we did up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was funny. We actually went to a rental property, one of them, my husband and I, last week, and the differences in the snowfall just from like where we are in Wisconsin to there, like they had an additional 16 inches more than we did. I'm like, holy
Yeah.
cow.
It was crazy.
Yikes.
Yeah, I couldn't see around any corner in that city. I'm like, okay, you're going to drive because I cannot see anything.
Probably smart.
Yeah. No, it's crazy from the lake effect and what happens
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
Well, that is awesome. I appreciate your time. Great insight on what you've got going. Hopefully things are picking up steam for you guys. Good luck with your next acquisition. Hopefully that goes smooth. Obviously jump on it quick, because as you know, properties are going within like hours at this point. So hopefully that'll go smooth with you, and then we'll touch base in a few months.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right.
Natasha does all the scheduling, so I'm going to lean that on her shoulders. She'll organize it.
Yep.
We'll talk soon.
All right.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.